Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
As more and more people arrive. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Thank you all for being here. It's lovely to see you all. I'm just letting more and more people in, all around, people from all around the globe. It's lovely to see. So I'll just let more and more people in as they arrive. Fantastic. Um, so welcome to Life Remixed and Leadership Equilibrium Leadership session. We are going to be having a very special day today. The first being that it is the launch day, the release date, the official release date of Money Remixed. Here it is in all its glory. Those of you who've already purchased it, I really do appreciate it, as does Paul. Thank you so much. Andrew. Andy, thank you for your video. Emma's got her copy. Wow, that's lovely. Thank you all. Perhaps we'll do. Perhaps we'll try and do a shot later with everyone on the screen who's got a copy and stuff like that. But anyway, thank you all. Andy, your video this morning was amazing. Thank you, and it gave Emma an idea about asking other people to make short videos about their favourite excerpts from the book. So that could be fun. So that might be something that we might ask people to do at some point as well. But thank you all for the support. I really believe it will make a huge difference in your life when you actually read through the entirety of that book. I think you'll find some real nuggets in there which will really help. Um, so it's a special day, as I say, it's Money Remix launch day, but it is also another special day because we're going to be looking at the e-colours and new work that we've done. I say we, the royal we, basically new work that Lewis has done and the team, but very much around resilience. So we are continually growing equilibrium and e-colours and ideas, and Lewis is. I'm really grateful to Lewis because he's going to take this session today, which is going to be fantastic. So I'm really pleased that he's here. And without further ado, I am recording the session. It will go out to everybody. I'm going to hand over to Lewis Senior. Good morning, Lewis.
Good morning, everybody, or from wherever you are in the world, and really looking forward to today. Thank you, Mark, for passing this on and allowing me to take the series today. So, welcome, everybody. And like I say, really looking forward to today. I think you all know all of this already, but I'll just go through it very quickly, um, if you wouldn't mind. So, if you haven't got your e-colors on your name, if you wouldn't mind renaming yourself. I think you know how to do that. Click on the three little dots, go down to the bottom, and it'll say rename. Please manage your microphones. That obviously we don't want to have anybody, kind of interfering with each other. If you can leave your webcam on, it certainly helps when we're looking at everybody. Use the chat box functionality. I'm going to be asking a lot of people to speak up today. I want to make this as interactive as possible, and please feel free to contribute your thoughts, feelings, and ideas if you like. So I wanted to start by just saying, David and I are going to work a little bit together on this. This is a picture David and I actually took as we were leaving the Rawabi office in Saudi Arabia a few weeks ago. And it's a real privilege to be able to work with him. And I want to make sure that, I recognize him for the work that he does. My e-colors are predominantly yellow-red, as you probably are aware, those of you that know me. And David, coming from a blue-yellow, blue-green perspective, actually adds a nice touch to that, as you will see. As Mark said, today is a really special day. And as I was thinking about this session that we're going to be running, it all ties very nicely into actually what we're about as an organization. I think they'll become very clear in the near future. So I got a couple of slides. Again, welcome to a very special Money Remixed launching day. Not every day you get to be part of something so special. And with that, I wanted to hand it over to the fantastic Mark Wilkinson.
And he's not joking. He does call me Mr. Fantastic, which for a top colour yellow, I do love a bit of praise. So that does work for me all day long. Yeah, look, thank you, Lewis. And as I say, for everybody who's buying the book, and the audio book will be coming soon, and the Kindle, etc. Paul and I have written the book, and I will ask Paul for a few words in a minute. But Paul and I have written the book very much about sharing our successes and also sharing our failures so that we can all learn from each other. And there is a very clear path. I learned a lot of my wealth building from Bob Proctor, as you all know. Paul did not. I mean, Paul was maybe brought up this way, maybe he'll tell you himself, but he was brought up this way to learn and to grow and invest and indeed become the man that he's become. So Paul is well ahead of me in the financial stakes. Not that it's a race, but actually the point is that he hasn't had a bankruptcy or an incurable disease thrown in. So my learning events were actually things that taught me a lot. And I look back on them with gratitude now. And the first line of Life Remixed actually says, "In every crisis, there is an opportunity." And I think that's a big, big thing because if you are feeling even a mini crisis, look for the opportunity and look for it as quickly as possible. If you're feeling bad or you're feeling negative or something's not quite right, then look for the opportunity as quickly as you can to flip it in your mind and change your mindset. And I mentioned that Andy Ward made a lovely video this morning, and I do appreciate it, Andy. What I would say in addition is that I remember thinking to myself, if all of this work that I was doing with Bob Proctor, if it turned out to be, and I'll use Andy's word, but if it turned out to be bullshit, I was going to write a book about how it's all mind games and it's all, it doesn't work. But I had to give it my best shot to be able to work out whether or not this stuff worked or didn't work. And I'm here to tell you, I'm here to share with you, it clearly does work. And that's why we've written this book. And this book starts a lot with mindset and develops into financial wealth as we get towards the end of the book. So even if you think, well, I've done all the mindset work, well, you might not have done if your results are not what you want them to be. But the mindset is the intro, is the build towards the financial wealth towards the end of the book. So we've shared this. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to get the most out of it. We would love an Amazon review from you when you get, towards the end of the book, because every single Amazon review that you offer and you put up actually, just benefits the book. And as I say, this week we're hoping to get an Amazon bestseller, which will be fantastic. So, Paul, would you like to just share a few words?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, so I think Money Remixed. It offers insights on money, wealth, and entrepreneurship. And as Mark mentioned, both Mark and myself used our own life experiences to, explore how money can be approached in a more modern context. So, the book covers how to build wealth and the approach using the 14 steps to a wealthy mindset as a roadmap. And again, a wealthy mindset. It's a set of beliefs, attitudes, and habits, and that are conducive towards achieving your purposes in life. It involves adopting a positive and proactive approach towards life with a focus on creating value. And it's important to note that a wealthy mindset is not solely about accumulating financial wealth, but more about how you approach life, with financial wealth being one of the outcomes. So for me, the driver behind the book, for me personally, was to give something back where people can learn how I was successful in following a wealthy mindset and the 14 steps to building wealth. And yeah, we're very excited that today's the launch day.
Thank you.
We appreciate everyone's support.
Thank you, Paul. And it is interesting when you put the book out. I put out a post yesterday, just to let people know the book was available and was there. And what was fascinating was a couple of negative beliefs from people on a post about money's the root of all evil. Money's this, money's that, money. It's amazing actually. And we cover this in the book. It's amazing that actually, money in the right hands is actually, can be a beautiful thing. And money in the wrong hands can be, quite a bad thing and give people a negative experience. And people are quite often drawn towards the negative rather than towards the positive. And from our perspective, it's very much about being positive and using any money that you earn for good. So, yeah, thank you, Paul. Lewis, shall we pass back to you?
Yeah, thank you. And again, congratulations on writing the book. And it's quite interesting, actually. This morning, somebody wrote to me and said they were booking a walk the next time I happened to be in Houston. And I went onto my phone and I was wondering from different perspectives of people who are on this call, if you do take pictures, I can't find any pictures on my phone that are not with other people. It's like every single picture has a meaning. And if you think about it in terms of our vision in equilibrium is realizing potential. And our single core value is people first. And actually, the book is just another step on that journey in terms of helping people to realize their potential. So, again, well done to both of you. And again, I've had the privilege of listening to it and looking forward to reading it even more. So, just as a matter of interest, before we go any further, for those of you who do take pictures, what have you got on your phone in terms of pictures? If you want to either speak up and it's time to have a chat here, or anybody, kids, dogs, Frankie.
I would say lots of selfies, but they've turned into more like what you do, which is ussies. These are
Yeah,
ussies.
us yeah. So it is interesting. I have a friend of mine who's predominantly green blue, and all of his pictures are landscapes. There's not one human being anywhere on any of the pictures. So again, I think it's just interesting from different perspectives. Let me answer that one real quick, or Mark or Paul.
Yeah.
When will the book be on Audible?
Yeah, I'll leave that to me. It's due out in the next week or so. But if anyone is waiting for the Audible, that doesn't count towards our bestseller. So if you would buy the paperback as well, we would really appreciate it. But the audiobook is imminent.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so again, that kind of sets the scene for today. Dogs and video. So, and Andy, I know that you say that you're working. I hope you are paying attention, because wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about the session that you've got coming up with Mark. So, are you ready to share, Andy?
I am. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, really looking forward to doing this with Mark. I've been a practitioner now for over a year, and I recently read the book, The Let Them Theory, and I thought it related so much to my own experience with e-colors, of how, most importantly, it's enabled me to cope a lot better with people in my life and my communication with them, and also by not taking things so personally when I failed to communicate a message to them. I understand now in hindsight that I made it about me, and it's really about them, and understanding how they translate the messages that I'm trying to deliver. And along with Mark, I'm looking forward to hosting that and putting it across in my own language, because Mark delivers these sessions fantastically. But I also do think, because of my own experience, sometimes people can be a little resistant to certain languages or whatever. So I'd like to think I can offer a different perspective on that, being a top color red, that many people will relate to.
Can I just add to that as well? Absolutely, Andy. Every one of us adds our own perspective to what we deliver. So, when Emma delivers an e-color session as a green blue, it's very different to what I would deliver as a yellow red, as an example. So, yeah, Andy, really looking forward to co-hosting with you. So great stuff.
Thank you. And this is a house coat, by the way. I am fully dressed underneath
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
It's just a little cold in here. I said it last week as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. Hey, I just want to go back to Paul's comment here. And this is one of the beauties of understanding the e-colors. He's predominantly red-green. I'm predominantly yellow-red. Let me just read you Paul's, if you didn't read it. My pictures are mainly of my son. Very little selfies, since you have to get close to people. And that really is a really good example of understanding and appreciating the different e-colors and how they actually work. So in terms of appreciation, I would be failing miserably if I didn't bring up this wonderful graphic of Mark and Emma, and the differences between them. As you well know, for those of you who've been following them for some time, is very much the differences in their e-color combinations. And again, if anybody's just starting on their journey, it is important to understand. And for those of you who are already sharing the e-colors with others, which I know several of you are, I would definitely make the point of, when you do show the pie chart to people, either yours or somebody else's, there's a couple of wins that you can always get here. One is to bring out very quickly that we're not just made up of two e-colors, that we have all four of the basic personality styles within us. So, for example, in Mark's case, as you can see, predominantly yellow and red, but there is green in there, and there always will be. of course, if you look at Emma's, it's the other way around. A lot of green and blue and very little yellow. But they're all accessible if we are in the mood and willingness to actually access even those lower e-color combinations. I think this is also a good point to work out when people ask you, will my e-colors change? I've never met anybody in my life who, once they've hit over 30% of the top color, the chances then of that top color changing are quite slight. So actually, before I go any further, anybody got any comments about what they see here and how they can relate to it?
Yeah, or indeed any observations about when you observe Emma and I in our interactions.
So opposites attract, that's for sure. So Mark, or maybe Emma would like to comment on this, but how long did it take you two to really understand the difference? And if you think about it in terms of the mountain, which we'll show in a while, and move from tolerate to appreciation.
I would suggest that it took us a few months because I was finding Emma, really calming, but then also very slow to make any kind of decisions on things. And I couldn't understand it. And I remember asking her the day I asked her, I said, would you look at this questionnaire for me and just, maybe answer it? Here's my report. And would you do yours? And I was actually quite surprised. I thought she would be like, oh, I'm not doing that. What's that about? But she actually really embraced it. And Emma, are you able to unmute Emma and just say about the experiences you've had before?
There, I've unmuted.
Go on.
Yeah, you would drive me bonkers. You still do drive me bonkers, but now I understand why.
Okay, but if
You're,
we go back to the beginning, you've done other team building days with other companies and other things, hadn't you?
oh yeah, I've done them all, like strength finders and all these other, I'll call them tests. And I wanted to do this test, so I'm not allowed to call it tests, I know. Um, but yeah, when I read your report, it was like, wow, this is 100% you. And it just all became clear on everything you do in life, why you're so fast paced, why you never rest, why everything's got to be done just so quickly, why you don't think things through, which drives me utterly up the wall. But yeah, I've now got a much better understanding of you.
Which leads to the mountain of appreciation, right?
Yeah, which did help me get there a lot quicker.
Yeah.
There you go. We finally got there,
Married
Mark.
without e-colours? No.
Say again,
Excellent.
Emma?
Would we be married without e-colours? I don't know.
Well, I think I've told Mark and Emma this story before, but for those of you who are not aware, we actually work with an organization in the States where the horses that the gentleman runs in his ranch, teaching feedback and leadership, the horses have colors. And the amount of people who come up to me, because we run sessions basically on family days, who are actually divorced, but they are both there because of the children that they're still, co-parenting. And they come up to me and say, PDI in your world stands for Personality Diversity Indicator, but really you should call it Pre-Divorce Indicator. And again, worth understanding that if you really appreciate the e-colors, there's a good chance to learn from it. I have moved a few slides around from what the way that things are normally presented, but I wanted to make a couple of points because I know that some of you are early on in your journey in going to be using the e-colors. And one of the things that we learned several years ago, when you are presenting the e-colors, the sooner you can distinguish for people that there is actually more to us than just our personality, the better. And so one of the ways we do this, and again, one of our coaches came up with this idea years ago, was to use the iceberg as an analogy. So that piece of the iceberg above the water, that tends to represent our personality and typically is what causes us to react. There's that natural reaction from our personality. Whereas the larger piece of the iceberg below the water, that tends to help us actually respond. And typically, you'll get a much better outcome when you respond rather than react. If any of you ever present this slide to engineers, my suggestion is never ever suggest the percentage of the iceberg that's above or below the water, because you can lose a lot of time getting your way out of that one. So let's just agree the smaller piece is above the water and the larger piece is below. If you get that out pretty quick when you're talking to people about the e-colors, it tends to settle people. Go, okay, fair enough. There is more to us than our personality. So having said that, again, I wanted to get this out pretty quick because one of the privileges we've had over the years is we've constantly been asking questions as how the different aspects of somebody's life, at work or at home, relate to personality. And so we've asked lots and lots and lots of questions. And in fact, right now, we're going to be asking another question around resilience, but it's just another part of the whole data lake of information that we've been collecting over the years, and very useful for you to understand, depending on your audience, what you want to fish in that data lake and pull out the information that will be useful at the time. And as Mark says here, in the slide that he uses, all of these subjects will stimulate conversation. So again, I am going to spend very little time on this. I'm sure you're all aware of it, but just for a couple of moments worth understanding. If you don't do anything else, I would explain always, we did not invent personality styles. They've been around for thousands of years. There's been many iterations over the years, as you well know. But basically, whichever system you use, it typically will tell you there are 4 basic personality styles. And we just use the e-colors to be able to help that understanding. The red in us tends to be the doer, the action-oriented side of us. The green in us tends to be the thinker or the relator, as you well know. The yellow tends to be the socializer, the engager. And the blue in us tends to be the relator and supporter. And you'll hear I'm using the word tend because these are just tendencies. And again, all 4 colors are important, and no e-color combination is more important or better than another. That's something that you really need to get across. As we see, and you'll see it play out over and over again, people who are predominantly red, green, green, red tend to be task-oriented and somewhat independent, whereas people who've got more of that yellow, blue, blue, yellow tend to be more people-oriented and interdependent. Neither is right or wrong, but they are significantly different. Like Andy was saying before, people who've got more of that red in them tend to be action oriented and faster paced, whereas people who've got that green, blue, blue, green more predominant tend to be information oriented and certainly need time to process. So when you're trying to work as a team, when people are trying to work together, understanding the differences become very, very important to understand. And for those people who are blue, red, red, blue, or green, yellow, yellow, green, very much worth having a conversation with them for them to explain how those 2 colors tend to interact with each other. For what it's worth, people will tell you that people who are more predominantly green and red, red, green tend to be less emotionally driven than people who are yellow, blue, blue, yellow. And as I'm talking here, I'm sure you could all relate to things that you've seen along the way. Interestingly, over the last few months, we've been working with a couple of organizations that are going through massive change. And when I say change, there's a lot of companies actually laying people off right now in various different industries. And over again, you will hear people talk about, oh, you just need to be resilient. And so as I'm taking you through this now, I'm looking through that lens, if you like, and it's something that I'm hoping you can pick up on and you can use in your own practice. So typically what you would see next are, again, and this is worth understanding, people who've got that predominant red in us tend to use the word what, tell me what to do, or I'll tell you what to do. The yellow in us typically wants to know who's going to be involved, who's going to be engaged, who's going to be impacted. The green in us wants to know how, and the blue wants to know why. Again, for lots of organizations, they typically write their process and procedures around here's what to do and why, and here's how to do it, and they don't provide the why, and then they wonder why people aren't actually acting the way they would look to understand. So make sure that the what, the why, the how, and the who, and the when for that matter, is typically covered. Now, I'm sure you've all seen this before. We all have our strengths and we all have our potential limiters. I will tell you that we've been doing this for over 20 years now, and I can picture in probably 30 or 40 different countries when we ask people to describe what their strengths are, these answers will come up in multiple different languages and almost always in the same order. So you all know your strengths. I'm sure you've been that before. What I would like to do is ask you this question. Which of your strengths help you to recharge your batteries? Because being able to recharge your batteries certainly has a role to play when we're talking about resilience. So I'm going to put the strengths up again, and then I'd ask you to either speak up, and I'd love to hear from you, for anybody who'd actually like to speak, or put the answers in the chat. But if you'd like to speak up, even better. So which of those strengths, which of your strengths help you to recharge your batteries? Anybody wants to unmute? Let's hear from you.
I think Lewis. I think decisive would be a big one for me, and although it's a strength, but it can also be a weakness. Not a weakness, but it can be a limiter as well. Um, being I'm red yellow, but it's definitely big time red. So sometimes I just pull the trigger too quickly. Um, Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't work out. But being decisive, and once you get that idea in your head, you can see that picture of how you want things to turn out. But flipping that coin over is pressing that pause button sometimes as well, just verify we're going down the right road. But definitely being decisive, it definitely keeps things simple.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Scott. And good to have you on the call, Scott. So I see a lot of answers here. Yellow, without a shadow of a doubt. Calm, from a green blue. Heather, I don't have your e-color. Sorry, independent.
Heather's red.
Paul, but red. Okay, blue red from Paul, from the blue red perspective. Andy, that red competitive nature and being strong will. Jack, being optimistic and decisive. Emma, green accurate. So again, isn't it interesting that even our strengths would tend to be how we actually charge our batteries? So if you think about it from that perspective, the next natural question is knowing our potential limiters. And again, I would ask you to speak up rather than get on the chat. We're all in this together. Knowing your potential limiters, which of them can hinder you from recharging your batteries?
Disorganized.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
I think Angela's got her hand up as well.
Yeah, it's
Okay, Angela.
the perfectionist in me. It drives me potty.
All right, excellent. Anybody else?
Impatience.
Impatient. Okay.
Heather says pushy. She's in the office, so she can't speak up at the moment. But yeah, brilliant.
Okay.
I've had to study this list because I think I've improved a hell of a lot. But the first one that jumps out probably is impatient, 100%.
Being impatient. Okay. So again, it's interesting that I think very quickly, you can find a connection. And I would suggest to you, as you go down your e-colors journey, the more that you can attach different perspectives of what you actually want people to be thinking about in terms of the strength and potential limiters, very much worth understanding. And again, I thank you for Scott for correcting yourself from weaknesses to potential limiter, because there's a very good reason why we call it a potential limiter. Is there anybody other than Mark, Paul, or David, or Emma who would like to explain why we call it a potential limiter and not a weakness?
Because you can't work on a weakness.
We can turn limiters into strengths.
Excellent, Reed. Nice to see you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good to see you too.
Excellent, thank you. So good, yes. And as a matter of fact, I don't mind telling you a bit of history because you're going to find it all being well in our next book, which is Personalities Remixed. When we first started Equilibria, we did actually call them weaknesses. And we were running a workshop in Nigeria. We just finished a huge workshop on a drill ship with about 200 and odd people. And one of the young men who was actually part of the catering crew was actually cleaning the room that the coach and I were working in. And he said, "Excuse me, but I've just been in your session. And if I heard you right, you say that your vision is realizing potential." I said, "Yes." He said, "Then why don't you call weaknesses potential limiters?" And that, and again, I think it's really nice to understand so many things that we've done through the years actually came from, and I'm sure it's going to happen with everybody on this call. All of a sudden, an idea goes, you know what? That's worth thinking about. So much appreciated. Okay. Any other comments before we move on? Anybody got any thoughts about? Well, let me back up. Having now been around the e-colors for a while, and Andy said it very well, is anybody else who's literally been working on at least one of their potential limiters?
Yeah, I have definitely. Oh, apologies. I hope I didn't cut over anyone then.
Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
emotional, right? So, really interesting aspect of our personalities because obviously emotion is important, but it's when it's important and when you allow it to kick in and when you allow it to, when you manage it basically is really, really important. So that's been a really important one for me that I'm now extremely aware of day to day. And yeah, I definitely feel that I'm managing it better. My emotions better dependent on the situation that I'm in.
Excellent, Kerry. And I got to tell you, Kerry, the amount of people who are now telling me, oh, I'm using Kerry's breathing little lesson has really hit
Hey,
home. So thank you. Much appreciated.
I
Again,
appreciate you
kind of
allowed me to provide that to you.
oh,
Thanks,
it's a
Lewis.
pleasure. And actually, if you think about it again in terms of resilience, when people are realizing, I mean, I can tell you, I don't know, I see somebody here from Canada. I don't know if there's anybody on from the States, but there's a really very interesting dynamic going on, which is probably new to a lot of people, but not relevant in the UK. But what we're finding right now, as some of these larger companies are worried about being laid off, their family members work for the federal government. And if you're following the news right now, they're letting a lot of the federal government people go as well. So it's a real double whammy. So anything
Mm.
that people can, grasp onto, like the breathing exercise, like understanding more about resilience, is probably as important now, if ever. Steve, you want to say something?
Yeah, hi Lewis, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, good, good. I just want to say one of the light bulb moments for me was judgmental. I was very judgmental of others. I'm mainly talking about employees and mainly their negative actions that didn't fit my mold. And I allowed that emotionally to affect me, and they became the boss of my emotions. And Mark obviously pointed this out during our coaching sessions. So I'm a lot less judgmental on these individuals now, knowing the different personalities that they all have.
That's great. That must be quite liberating, isn't it?
Yeah, I can still, as imagine, I can still fall back into it sometimes because being an employer, when people don't fulfill my standards, and I do say my standards, it does still slightly affect me, but nowhere near as it did. I was very close to burnout at one stage where I was allowing my employees to be my boss. That's essentially what I was doing
Interesting.
until all of this lovely self-development and learning and understanding and awareness. And the key was awareness more than anything. I was just not aware that that was happening to me. And I had full control of it, which is an amazing light bulb moment, really.
Excellent, excellent. That's great to hear. Thank you, Steve. By the way, has your son moved out now?
Yes, he has, Lewis. and,
Doing well?
and he's doing very well, thank you. And the house is a lot tidier.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So again, interesting to see how this works. So one of the things that I know Mark sent out last night was what we call this two-page value proposition. And again, the reason we call it a value proposition, as you can well imagine, when you are trying to work your way into a market, which I'm sure some of you are, you really need to prove the value as fast as you can. And so it's literally why we call it a value proposition. I think it's well worth a read, and something that I hope if you haven't had a look at it, I would highly recommend that you have a good look at it. So, these are typically the objectives: is understanding how the e-colors can enhance leadership, teamwork, and safety by embracing everything around personality diversity. That's something that is, I think is very clear, or I hope to everybody. And also to begin to understand your own and other e-colors as they will thread their way through all of the leadership sessions. And that's going to be common. This is the second round of leadership sessions. And just like Mark was saying at the beginning, always useful to have different editions so people don't feel they're going to be hearing the same thing over and over again. I'm going to bring these up together because I think they're all important. But these are some of the ways that we typically use the e-colors. One is around behavioral and psychological safety, but both physically and emotionally, and that's a continual journey that we're working on. Team building, for all the obvious reasons, the more that a team understands each other, and it never fails to be very, very interesting to see how that plays out. I was actually in Utah a couple of weeks ago working with a geothermal organization who had both the people doing the drilling for the geothermal, doing the fracking to make sure the geothermal would come to the surface, and also building the facility. So lots and lots of people with completely different backgrounds, but just by coming together through their e-colors and a couple of hour session was really interesting to see how quickly everything suddenly landed and people went, oh, that's why this is happening and that's happening. Created a whole new dynamic. For those of you who are doing any leadership coaching, be it one-on-one or whichever way you are doing it, very useful using the premium report, which I'm sure some of you are doing. And then from conflict resolution and change management, just understanding that people think differently, which a lot of times is the source of where the conflict is coming from. And then business development, understanding how to deal with different customers, or especially when you're customer facing, is depending on how they see the world through their lens, well worth tapping into that. And then last but not least, I mean, anybody who's on this call, who's doing any coaching, if you're using the e-colors as the foundation, Mark does it in his remix coaching. We've been doing it for years through Equilibria. It really just sets a nice foundation for everything else. It's not the be all and end all, but it certainly sets you off on the right foot. So before I go any further, is there anybody doing any coaching who's actually been able to use the e-colors and see how it plays out? Again, I'd invite you to speak up. Reed?
Yeah, I've done a small amount, yeah. So people that I've loosely known in Dubai were having particular difficulties at the time. They confided in me they're having lots of difficulties with either work-related or personal challenges. And then I suggested that I could work with them, and I've done so. There was one individual, one young lady that had a number of personal challenges and then a load of work challenges, and I worked with her for about on and off for about 6 months. What was really interesting, Lewis, is she's a blue green, and when she did her PDI, and I did a session with her to take her through her PDI in detail, just watching someone's like the light bulb moments physically happening with someone on a call when you're going through it was just, and then watching her develop over the preceding months and able to turn things around and perhaps see life through a different lens. It's been remarkable actually, seeing it actually when you I've been working with Mark, as you know, for some time, and yourself as well. And it's one thing understanding it from my own perspective, but seeing it from someone I've been working with closely and seeing the transformation in that individual was quite remarkable.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you, Reed. Angela, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I've been working for the NHS for 42 years and I recently retired last year. So I've been coaching staff all my life, and that's the bit I like the best is watching them personally and professionally develop. But I've gone back, I can't keep away, and I'm doing some mentoring with the new matrons in our local hospital because there's so many inexperienced staff now, with many experienced staff retiring. So I'm giving a bit back, and we've been asked to use Myers-Briggs, but I'm going to be dropping in a bit of e-colours there.
Yeah, well done. Because
An opportunity because
yeah,
it I've done
Mark,
it. I've done all of those, and I think that this is the one that people can relate to the most.
it's the most memorable,
Yeah.
Angela. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and yeah, do get involved. And if you want to become a practitioner, just give me a shout. So
Okay.
Angela, I just want to build on that. So recently we were approached by one of the vet sister organizations. When I say vet, I mean war veterans in the US. We did some work with them because the suicide rate for vets in the US is about 22 people a day. And I was listening to a broadcast the other day. The nurses in the UK is the highest suicide rate of any other function working in the UK. It's about 27% higher than any other job. So when we're talking about personal intervention, I can't even start to tell you all the times we've been told I was going to commit suicide and decided to press my pause button. So I would highly recommend that you do talk to Mark and see what you can do there. I think that's a huge opportunity.
There certainly is, and I will do. Yeah.
Excellent. Anybody else who's had an e-colors coaching session that they'd like to share? Kerry.
Yeah, hi. I recently did a session for a guy that's actually a colleague of mine in some corporate work that I do. And he was very close on his colours. He was top colour green, followed very, very closely by red. So it was quite interesting. He was actually post my daughter, the second session that I'd actually run. Um, and there was lots of resistance as a result of kind of his tendencies, so it was really interesting for one of my first, I guess, professional sessions. um, through the debrief, I just wanted to make the point around the debrief, I guess. So he read the report, he could see aspects of himself there. It wasn't until we did that debrief session that the penny drop moment really happened for him. So just really to get across to people the value in those debriefing sessions. Prior to that, lots of resistance. By the time we'd got through that session, which we'd actually had to split into two, but over a couple of days, but he was like, wow, I really get it, and found it really, really valuable, and is really now starting to help him with some tendencies, especially around where he's not, in his own words, not very great with empathy and seeing other people's perspectives in respect to the team that he develops, and can come across like he's quite uncaring and unfeeling. And yeah, he started to really work through that now. So yeah, really, really great. It was quite nice to have quite a challenging first session with somebody. I did reach out to Mark a couple of times on it, but yeah, like, it's found it really, really useful, and we're looking to take that across the rest of the organisation.
Excellent, excellent, Kerry. Thank you. So, for what it's worth, we have seen over the many years lots of examples of the benefits of e-color. Certainly, from a safety perspective, near miss reporting tends to go up significantly because you create that psychological safe environment, which, Scott, I know is important to you to be thinking about. Communication and productivity, all of those go up. And then, thank goodness, and Jim McGee, I know you're on this call, accidents, fatalities, insurance claim, lost time incidents, they will take a significant dip, which is always good to see. And we've got plenty of information to back that up. It is important always when we are describing the e-colors to make people aware that we not only have a set of ethics, which are in the take it out of your pocketbooks, I like to call them, but also I remember David actually was asked by one of the organizations we were working with many years ago is, what exactly are the e-colors and what are they not? David, do you just want to remind us of how this came about and why it's so important to understand this?
Surely, and as you well mentioned, it just comes around years of application and how important it is to quickly frame the tool so we understand what we're doing with it. And again, sometimes we get into the conversation about the differentiators of e-colors versus other tools, and all tools can absolutely be great. At the end of the day, especially with the amount of overwhelming amount of information that we have available, how we use things, how we apply things, and how we actually make the most out of certain tools is really the key differentiator. And this was absolutely the case for us, whereby the ethical approach of utilizing the tool becomes so important. So just reviewing these principles of what the tool's used for and what it's not is absolutely key. I won't go through all of them in specifics, but I will say it's all associated with utilizing the tool in a way that we understand that we're not profiling. As much as we can do if we understand the tool within the framework of what it is, raise self-awareness, social awareness, manage our tendencies, communicate more intentionally, appreciate those benefits of diversity. We understand that we describe those tendencies, but it's not a finite description of who we are. There are other aspects that influence us. And also just overall a way to understand that now that we understand these tendencies, we can grow and develop more of a mindset shift. And then again, understand what it's not, which is a way to profile, a way to discriminate. And what I like to say in the workshops, it's not a matrix or an assessment that will guess or our future performance. It won't guess our success at a given job or a given task. And that's really key, because we don't want to assume performance or assume that we'll be better off or worse off regarding what we're doing with the e-colors. If we truly understand the tool, we can manage our tendencies more effectively.
Thank you, David. Actually, I want to go back and answer a couple of questions that have come up. So Kerry's asking, has there been any measures of prevented absence due to workplace stress or burnout? We have not actually done any surveys on this, but experience from what we've seen in certain organizations, it's definitely helped significantly. And one of the best examples I can give you is we were working for a client, an oil company, who a few years ago decided to start selling off their refineries. And whoever got sold off with the refinery went with the refinery. And the leader, actually, who we quote a lot, Mark Nelson, who made a very nice video for us, he actually said, Lewis, I really want you to start focusing on pause and play and personal intervention. I want to give people a tool to manage the stress of what's coming their way. And we did, and the result was quite spectacular. In fact, even Mark, you talked to one of the guys in New Zealand a few weeks ago who was a really good example of that. And so by giving people a tool, something as simple as a wristband, and really understanding the benefits of pause and play certainly did reduce stress on that one. And great to hear from Jack about the information there from Transdesh about the reduction in incidents and accidents since they introduced the eco. I mean, 37% reduction. That's huge for lots of different reasons. So excellent to hear. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to actually breeze past this other than to tell you it's a useful slide to use because it very quickly helps people understand. If you imagine our e-colors are in these different wells, then typically, obviously, it's much easier for this person who's predominantly green to access any of the green strengths. And it's a little bit more difficult to access the blue in this case because that's the lowest percentage for this individual. And on a nice calm day, that's easy to do. If you're running a session, I would highly encourage you to go to the next slide and say, okay, you can access each of these lower E colors when everything is nice and calm. But what happens when there's chaos in the system? And what does this rough water represent in your world? And you'll get some really interesting answers. Again, I know you've been through this before, but well worth using the slide to your advantage. Personal intervention, this pause and play, is really the key to the kingdom. As David just said, there's hundreds of different tools out there to help you find out a little bit about your personality. But what do you do with it? And the key is literally having this process around what we call personal intervention. And this pause and play, and it's no exaggeration, it's a lifesaver, literally. I have seen people who literally had told us, I wouldn't be alive today unless I pressed my pause button. And for people who are green, blue, blue, green in particular, pressing play, even when it's uncomfortable, is a huge step forward. And for anybody of you on this call, and I'm sure there are some who are familiar with NLP, this neuro linguistic programming, they say that if you touch either these two buttons, it will eventually open a new neural pathway, which will get you to a new way of thinking and acting, which will lead to a better habit. So again, all of these things are available for your use. The e-colors, I'm sure you know all of this, so I'm not going to go. I will tell you, interestingly enough, we're often asked, oh, but what about the science? You know, everything you're talking about is experiential. Well, this is a definition of science. The systemic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation, experimentation, and testing of theories against the evidence obtained. And that's what we do in every session we run, be it a coaching session or a session with other people. So we're observing, we're experimenting, and we're testing theories. And by the way, if the theory is wrong, then we will park it. We've had a couple of those issues before, but worth understanding. So you're on firm ground if somebody says, what's the science behind it? I'm going to go past the essentials. I really want to get to these two questions here, which again, I want to come back to the thing about resilience. Mark said at the beginning, every time a session is run this time around, we're going to keep feeding different aspects of all this into us. So the question, first of all, is how do you manage your resilience? And what, if any, challenge do you have right now where it would be useful to be able to manage your resilience in a different way? And again, I would ask you to speak up, but I think we can have some rich conversations here. So anybody like to go first? Oh, sorry. Let me go back to the questions. So how do you manage resilience? And what, if any, challenges do you have right now? Whoever'd like to go first. Let's see if we can hear from everybody.
I'll speak up first if no one minds. My most important thing that helps me is remembering to get out of my own way, stop taking myself too seriously, and understanding that people don't mean to offend me on purpose. It is just their own ways of communicating. And it's amazing how that just those few thoughts give me the tolerance and the patience, the acceptance to then find a means to overcome that particular challenge. And in the past, there's no way I would have ever been able to do that.
Andy, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
You used some great words there.
And I corrected myself quickly.
No. You used some great words there. My question would be: have you got to gratitude for those people?
Completely.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because it was great because you kind of moved up the mountain. You went sort of down resistance, frustration, tolerance, and it was I was waiting for gratitude, and I was thinking, has he got to it? Because it's a real massive challenge that for people, you know, to be grateful to other personality styles when they're being their colours, their styles. To find
it is the gratitude that reminds me to convey that gratitude as well, and from different things that I've read as well along the way. Making sure that they are aware of how grateful I am, and then saying, however, we do have these issues that we need to try and overcome.
Excellent, mate. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela, you got your hand up?
I think Kerry was first.
That's okay. Go, you go.
So resilience in the NHS during COVID, I mean, it was huge. And I thought I was really good at it. So give me a major incident and I go very calm and I'm very resilient and lead and everything. But little did I know what it was doing to my physical body inside. So I then got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. So I became ill. So I wasn't managing my resilience, even though I thought I was. So for me, the challenges around that now are to look after my health. It's a bit like putting your own life jacket on before you help others, really. So exercise, eating healthily, that's got to be the best way to manage it, as well as that psychological and mental and emotional resilience as well. And that's where Kerry comes in with her breathing.
Kerry?
Yeah, so yeah, as Angela mentioned, thanks, Angela. I mean, I think breath work is absolutely core to how I manage my resilience, both proactively. So I practice breath work every day. For those of you that don't know, I'm a certified practitioner. So that's in respect to cumulative kind of prevention of, things that may burn us out, because I've experienced burnout 3 times in my life. And then also in the moment using breathwork techniques when I feel that my resilience is low and I'm responding in a bad way that's going to be negative for me or other people, catching myself and using a little bit of breath work. But it's broader than that too. Mindfulness, meditation, all of these techniques are really intrinsic for myself and for other people to use to really, really help. I think to the point on gratitude, absolutely more and more over the last, I guess, year to 18 months of my life, that's played more and more of a part, issues with relationships, whether, in a personal or a working context. I'm not perfect at it, because none of us are, because we're all human. But again, back to awareness, if I catch myself going down a negative thought pattern, in respect to maybe how I've been treated or a circumstance, the awareness kicks in. And then I try and switch that to gratitude for that person and compassion, basically, and understanding that we're all different. So that plays a really big part as well for me.
Excellent. So I'm cognizant of the fact we've only got 4 minutes left. So I'm just going to show you something, and we will send you this information after. But like everything else we do, like I said, we experiment, we engage, we try and understand from different people. So we have actually been giving these out to people who are going through some form of resilience challenge, both from a leader's perspective and also for the individual. And then, as always, we looked at it from a top color perspective. So I'm sure Mark will send this to every one of you. But again, useful information to have at your fingertips and a great conversation starter. I'm going to go past all of this because I know that Mark would like to end. Certainly, again, you've got plenty of great information in the premium report. I would never sell that short. I think there's a lot to be said. Your participants will always get and I use the words, take it out of your pocketbook. The pocketbook does no good in somebody's pocket or bag. It needs to be out and used, because if you can predict it, you can manage it. And certainly there's a lot of great information. Andy, Mark, you've got your session coming up. So all being well, as many people as possible who are premium report holders will grab hold of that. As Andy was saying, it's good to get a red perspective on top of all the top color yellow perspective that obviously Mark will give you. The golden rule, very simple. Treat people as you would like to be treated. Great if the person happens to be like you. If the platinum rule, probably a lot more valid, is treat people as they need to be treated. And that really helps things along very, very nicely. So with that, Mark, would you like to say something before we finish?
Yeah, thank you, Lewis. If you'd like to book in any kind of time, I see Angela booked in some time there during the call. So, Angela, I look forward to us having a one-to-one catch up. Lewis, just keep moving through the slides if you want, mate. That's fine. And at the end, those of you that have a Money Remix book, if you're happy to hold it on the screen, and we do a little screenshot, so I can share that later. That would be amazing. But yeah, become an e-commerce practitioner with me, with us. Be intentional with your thoughts, words, actions, and habits, because they become your character. Your character becomes your legacy. And ultimately, there's a great quote around people won't remember what you said or did necessarily, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And if you give people a good feeling about a product or an idea or coaching or whatever it is that you're doing, you will succeed. You will literally succeed. And I remember thinking, it can't be as easy as that, can it? But it has to come from the heart. It has to come from the heart. It has to come from a position of you being in a really great position and then be able to share that with other people. So very, very, very important. Do you want to take off your share there, Lewis? Excellent. There we go. So thank you, all of you that are here. I appreciate that not everyone's necessarily got the book today. But first of all, I'd like to thank Lewis because that was a great session. And Lewis, thank you for doing the extra work you've done on resilience. We have more on purpose as well, which is going to be good, all from eColors perspectives. It continues. We continue growing, continue sharing, continue creating. Nothing ever ends. It's important for us to keep the momentum and keep going. So we really appreciate every single one of you being here. Who actually does have a Money Remix book? Does anyone actually have one? Okay, so if I hold mine, I'm going to do a little screenshot. Hang on, one sec. Let me get this right. Right, so I'm going to hold mine. If you've all got it, that'll be amazing. Thank you. I'll do a little screenshot there. There we go. Bang. Excellent. Thank you. Lovely stuff. And I really do appreciate those of you that are buying it, reading it, and I'm really looking forward to all of your feedback. Any other questions? Anything else anyone would like to bring up? I realise we're bang on time, so some of you will have other meetings, but anything else from anybody? Otherwise, I'd like to say thank
Did
you.
I just miss you taking the group photo then with the books?
Did you miss it? Do you want to do
Yeah,
it?
sorry, because I was just in the middle of doing a show changeover. I'm so sorry.
Try again. One, two, get ready. You ready? Hold it up. Hang on. Wait. No, wait. Let me get my screenshot up. Okay, ready? One, two, three. Done. Good. Thank you, Andy. Well done.
Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
That's all right, dude. Thank you. Listen, amazing. Wonderful to see you all. Thank you for being here. Same time next week. Any questions in the meantime, just get in touch with me, Lewis, David, Paul, or any of us. But yeah, take care of yourselves and we'll see you soon.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks all.